I'll go ahead and get started. It's a couple minutes after 3. We have scheduled this webinar for 60 minutes, but I don't believe we'll be taking that full amount of time. So thank you all for joining us today. I'll go ahead and get started with a brief intro. My name is Tungshi Claremont. I'm the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund Managing Director. We'll also have, in the later half of the webinar, Angelica Wright, who is our Leadership Programs Officer. So we're just kind of tag teaming today to deliver this informational webinar on the Tribal Energy Innovators Fellowship. It pretty much aligns and mirrors with our request for applications document listed on our website, but we'll be monitoring the chat box to see if there's any specific questions we can answer today. You're always welcome to give Angelica a call or send her an email, and you can find that contact information listed on our website, tribalsolar.org. So just a couple of housekeeping reminders that this webinar is being recorded, and we'll again kind of prepare the recorded webinar in the next few days and upload it to the website. Everyone is in listen only mode. Again, we'll be monitoring the chat box. If there's any questions, just go ahead and type into the questions pane into the control panel. And then if you are a telephone user, you must enter the audio pin to acquire the questions pane in the control panel. So we're going to cover a few things on today's webinar. In the first half, I'm going to provide the overview of grid alternatives and the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund, and just kind of some context behind the Tribal Energy Innovators Fellowship and our past 2 cohorts. And then I'll pass it on to Angelica, who will provide the programming overview. So as you can see listed, I'm just gonna, again, kind of cover what is already in the request for applications, but we'll try to, again, provide a little more detail and context to those requirements. So I'll start with the background and kind of history of grid alternatives. Grid's mission is to build community-powered solutions to advance economic and environmental justice through renewable energy. And Grid's vision is to accelerate a rapid, equitable transition to a world powered by renewable energy that benefits everyone. Grid was founded during the 2001 California energy crisis by Erica Mackey and Tim Sears, who are 2 engineering professionals and who were, during that time, implementing large-scale renewable energy and energy efficiency projects for the private sector. The idea that drove them was simple. Free, clean electricity from the sun should be available to everyone. Through grid alternatives, they developed a model to make solar PV technology practical and accessible for low-income communities, while providing pathways to clean energy jobs. Some of Grid's impacts to date. Grid is a leading national nonprofit organization, simply leading the voice in low-income solar policy and the nation's largest nonprofit solar installer. Grid serves families throughout California, Colorado, the Mid-Atlantic region, and tribal communities nationwide. Grid has installed over 18,000 systems with a total kilowatts of 78,787. which equals around a lifetime savings of 602 million. And that's calculated over 25 years. Grid Alternatives has a national tribal program and has been working with tribes since 2010 across the United States. Really the premise and the intention there is to work with tribes, achieve their own renewable energy goals using a community-centric approach. And we partner with tribes to identify, develop, finance, and implement solar projects that meet community needs, which also includes education, hands-on training, and energy cost reductions for tribal members. So the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund is a program within Grid Alternatives. We are headquartered in Denver, Colorado. And kind of the origin story of the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund began in 2018 when Wells Fargo Foundation announced a commitment of $200 million towards sustainable financing, which also included $100 million going towards financing clean technology and renewable energy projects. Shortly after the Wells Fargo announcement, several of Grid's tribal partners reached out to request support from Grid to access the philanthropic dollars. They simply knew that Grid has been a partner of Wells Fargo for almost 15 years at that point. So it was really kind of spearheaded by the tribes that Grid has previously worked with before this announcement, and the fact that Grid already had an established relationship with Wells Fargo. It just made sense for Grid to kind of house that funding or a piece of that funding so that tribes wouldn't have to individually apply to the Wells Fargo Foundation. We would serve as the grant maker of some of those funds. So we did have a number of discussions with the Wells Fargo Foundation and a number of tribes that we were already partners with to come up with this concept of the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund, which is, in theory, it's an extension of the long-term partnership with Wells Fargo Foundation, as well as kind of the extension and working in alignment with Grid's national tribal program. So Wells Fargo did provide the seed capital to begin the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund with a 3-year, $5 million commitment to help support the development of new solar projects in tribal communities. TSAF's mission aims to catalyze the growth of solar energy and expand solar job opportunities in tribal communities across the United States. And the vision for Indian country is a transition to energy sovereignty that is educational, entrepreneurial, and completely renewable. Some of the opportunities that we have developed under the TSAF is a number of grant programs. In particular, we have a tribal solar grant program, which supports funding, or it supports the development of solar projects on facility and residential structures. We also, new to this grant year, we're going to be providing a planning grant opportunity, which will enable tribes to apply for funding to just simply do the planning and development of a formal energy plan. And we also provide a matching grant opportunity, which is a gap funding grant. And this is, the intention of that is for tribes to apply for this funding and leverage other maybe federal or state or other philanthropic dollars as well. And in late 2019, the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund was well established on their grant making side, but also wanted to conceptualize a number of different programs that would kind of meet individual needs. So we developed this fellowship, the Tribal Energy Innovators Fellowship, as well as the Tribal College and University Scholarship Program in partnership with the American Indian College Fund. So we're really aiming to build a community of tribal energy leaders, whether that's through grant making and working directly with the tribe and kind of a project team, as well as individual tribal members in our fellowship and scholarship programs. Also new this year is the Summer Associates Program, which is a intensive 8-week program that kind of gives you a really good experience as far as learning about philanthropic fundraising in this industry, as well as kind of just learning about the industry overall of renewable energy and solar. We're also going to be covering a number of activities as far as communications activities goes. So a lot of kind of social media, website development, storytelling. So yeah, this program is pretty exciting for this upcoming year. We're also in the development of an internship program. So please check back on our website for other leadership programs opportunities that will launch on August 1st. I kind of wanted to cover some of the impacts to date as well. The Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund, again, began in 2018 with the $5 million grant, and that was for 3 years. So that technically ended in 2021, but prior to the exhaustion of those funds from the initial grant, we were continuing to fundraise with other foundations and other industry partners, and we did offer another round of grant funding after 2021. So to date, we have provided $4.1 million in grant funds, which also supported, again, the leadership programs of individuals who are looking for a educational or career pathway. And we're very proud to say that we have worked with over 32 tribes in 7 states. And so we're, with the launch of our grant program for 2022-2023, we're looking to double that number this year in working with 30 to 35 tribes just in this year alone. So we're doing really well in kind of creating that awareness in the industry, as well as with philanthropic foundations that see value in our work and our work with tribes. So we're just really proud to be able to, again, offer individual programs like this one today. So here's a picture of our Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund team. From left to right is on the left, that's John Teller. He is Menominee from Keshena, Wisconsin, and he is our communications officer. I am next to him, and I, again, am the managing director. I am an enrolled member of the Siston-Wahpeton tribe. I'm also Sichangu Lakota. Next to me is Christian Weaver. He is based in Washington, D.C., and he is from the Shinnecock Nation of New York. Next to him is Angelica Wright, who is our leadership programs officer and a member of the Choctaw Nation. And right next to her is Adam Badwound, who is Oglala Lakota. He is based in Denver, Colorado, and he has a much bigger job, but he is a part of our team as the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund founder. So he was really instrumental in conceptualizing and creating kind of what the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund came to be with the $5 million. He has a much bigger job at Grid Alternatives as the Chief Development Officer. So he's responsible for the fundraising efforts at Grid Alternatives as an organization. So as we kind of get into more of the program information side, I just wanted to share what our Tribal Energy Innovators bases of the fellowship have looked like over the past couple of years. In our first cohort, we had 5 folks from 5 different tribes in 5 different states. And they really kicked off the excitement around, developing this type of program within the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund, also within Grid Alternatives as an organization, because these are really the faces of our tribal communities and tribal energy leaders out there that really want to make a change either within their community or within the industry, and helping to create awareness around the innovative and unique ideas in our tribal communities around renewable energy efforts. In our second cohort, we had 4, but currently have 3 fellows that are finishing out the program. Again, they're from 4 different tribes and 4 different states. You can read more about all of our fellows at tribalsolar.org/fellowships, and you'll see it broken down each year. You'll be able to see kind of the project that they proposed or their idea that they proposed, and kind of what their goals and objectives were for their fellowship. It's just, we're very flexible and open-minded, and we want to provide as much support as the industry leader as possible. So we basically allow almost anything to be, proposed as your fellowship. We really want to support your ideas and how you're going to support your own tribal communities. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Angelica so she can provide the second half of the information on our fellowship.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yes, just kind of diving into what the fellowship is and kind of who we're looking for again. We really are interested in supporting the general overall interest of renewable energy within Indian country, but specifically looking at it being designated towards federally recognized tribal members who are, again, invested, interested, or engaged in the work that is supporting renewable energy infrastructures within tribal energy and capacity in tribal communities. And so through that, we're really taking the time to support in different ways. Would that be with the Grid Alternatives connections, as well as the TSAF connections, in industry leaders, within different entrepreneurs who are in this sphere of work, and being able to create mentors and community to allow our fellows to kind of extend outside their networks and to be able to collaborate with each other. Some of the most important collaboration that we've seen through the fellowship is really just the learning that occurs between fellows as well. So just kind of taking in that look, taking that in through this year-long process of how we're going to be communicating and creating with the fellows and the work that they're doing, because it is innovative and really wonderful to see the impact that is happening throughout their tribal communities, and just again the extension of that as we come back together and have the opportunity to both celebrate that and learn from the different processes of doing this work. And so yes, just in summary, just this to support the development and innovative ideas. But moving on to the objectives, just to The first one really being to provide a fellowship award to plan and develop new solutions to tribal community renewable energy challenges. And then the second one, moving into engaging the tribal community, making the most of existing assets, and working collaboratively with other tribal organizations. And third, to learn from and be mentored by industry professionals on best practices in renewable energy for rural and underserved communities, business, enterprise models, planning, and other areas of technical support. So just taking those three objectives for us as we move forward as TSAF in supporting these fellowships, but also as being fellows, kind of knowing what the work is going to entail and how we are looking to support you all. And so through the application process, you will find that the guidelines document is accessible on tribalsolar.org under the leadership programs tab, specifically under the fellowships application. And so within the guidelines, you'll kind of see a little bit more, again, of the information that you're hearing here today, but just kind of how to move through the application itself and get a little bit more written background about what we're looking for as well. So there are two different ways to apply for the application forms. Again, you are able to access this on our website. You can apply via Word document or via Google form. To look at the Word document, you'll download the PDF just that has a lot of the application questions on our website, and it just goes through that general information that we're going to need. And the Google form will also have just the same information. It's just another way to apply if you prefer that method. If you are applying via Word, we're going to have all of this application into one document. It's going to be into one document that is sent via email versus the Google form, which is submitted online. So just to break down the application a little bit further, you will have the general information section. And so again, we're just trying to gather that, who you are, your tribal affiliation, just some of those necessary housekeeping questions that are part of any application, as well as maybe a couple written sections for that. The big portions of this application are going to be the narrative questions, and they're broken down to kind of some of those other. The narrative questions are essentially kind of looking for more details about what your project is and how we can support you. So just some of those, learning more about the work you're going to be doing under this fellowship through the entire application. On both forms, there's going to be a word count requirement. So making sure that you are adhering to that word count requirement will be incredibly important. So just again, as you go through the application form and the application guidelines, taking time to pay attention to the details and what is required. There will also be, when you are submitting again for the application, making sure that you are adhering to some of those page requirements with the Word documents too. So having the Word requirements and not going over pages. I think we have it set on the application form that it says 10 pages. So just being mindful of that. So if you fill out all the narrative questions and the general information and you have anything additional, just adhering to those requirements. If you go over, we're only going to take the first 10. And then when you submit again for the Word application, please make sure it is into one document following the instructions to submit. Now, the submissions are to be submitted by July 15th. And if you do have any questions or run into any issues with the applications, you can reach out again to me. My contact information will be available online, and I can help with that process as well. Just again, if there's any little technical issues, but please just kind of, again, paying attention to some of those word requirements per the questions and not going over that. And to access the documents one more time, that will be on the website, tribalsolar.org, under the Leadership Programs tab, Fellowships section. And so in looking at the applications, we're kind of reviewing these 7 different sections, and you can kind of take a look at what that looks like. Again, this is just some things that we're trying to see in terms of, as a fellow, where you're coming from, where you're going from, what are the strengths of these sections, the weaknesses of these sections, and taking that all into consideration when we're reviewing the application. So another thing to just be mindful of is, not all, your entire application doesn't need to be strong in all of the criteria categories to be judged to be perfect, right? We know that maybe like the concept of innovation, it might not be a new idea, but it might be a very necessary idea and have high impact within your tribal community. And so it's very essential work that needs to be done, and is very valuable in being supported. So just taking that into consideration, that it doesn't need to be perfect, but just taking the time to look at what these 7 sections are, what is the focus. And so when you're reviewing your application before you submit it, it's kind of going back and is like, am I meeting this criteria? Does this make sense? And then just it's a good way to review that before submitting it, and so you can kind of have a sense of how we're going to be judging this. And when I say judging this, I mean reviewing this. And then so just kind of looking at the TEI commitments as a fellow. So you're really looking at some bi-monthly check-ins, looking at individual cohort calls. So having some individual calls with me, as well as getting the opportunity to engage with your other cohort members through cohort calls, and getting to learn more throughout the fellowship within that. So thinking about that commitment as well as when you commit to being a fellow. And then as well as the plan development, so kind of looking at the learning outcomes and goals for the fellowship, what you're expected to do, and how you will be kind of moving through your project or through the work you're doing. So really having those plans in place and having follow-up with that as well. We will have a final convening as well as a part of this fellowship. That might look like a demonstration day where we're able to kind of be on site and maybe see some of these demos happening, or it might look just a little bit different depending on what the fellowship needs are. But really it's an in-person convening, and it will be held roughly in June 2023. So please be mindful of that. Again, these are just some of the commitments that as a fellow you'll be expected to partake in. And then looking at the funding and disbursement, the award itself for this cycle is $25,000. And when we're going through it, the ideal date for having that contract and W-9 sign is August 5th, 2022. So after that, there will be the awards that are split into 4 payments of $6,250. That first payment by September 1st, 2022, and so on, kind of within that cycle, and the last one kind of ending sometime in 2023 in the summer. The second payment is contingent on the participation, so making sure when we're talking about what that commitment looks like, those calls, those required readings, discussions, kind of how we're engaging with your project and your work as a fellow. So making sure that you're an active participant within the fellowship. And so that's kind of how the payment process will be expected from there on out. And then just to kind of give you a bit of a timeline on what everything looks like. So we do have our application submission due July 15th by 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, as well as the award and denial notification that will take place on August 1st of 2022. And then the fellowship essentially kind of beginning August 1st through July 31st of 2023. The individual check-ins with the TSAF staff will begin through in August 2022 of kind of more so looking at the individual check-ins and then the cohort check-ins beginning in September of this year as well. So again, kind of starting off August, getting started, looking at how the fellowship's going to kick off, and then working into September, really being able to join into the cohort and being involved with those calls. And then we are looking at the fellowship convening to take place in June 2023. And then there will be the fellowship report 2, which I think I skipped over a little bit, but at the end of your program, just for the reports as we engage in this fellowship, a follow-up. It's usually about 2 pages of some of the work that you've been doing, and just kind of, again, what does the report look like? How are you engaging with the program? What have you been able to achieve throughout the program? And so just to have that on, again, in your head as you think about the commitments for being a TEI fellow. Okay, so that again is just kind of the brief overview of the application. If there's any other questions, if you could put that in the chat right now, that would be great. But we also have a TEI facts page on our website. Again, it's going to be under the Leadership Programs Fellowship website, that general site, and it'll be linked in there. So if you just kind of come back at a later time, you're like, well, let me see if that's in there, but you are always welcome to reach out as well. So I think we'll just give it a moment if there's anyone in the chat who wants to ask some questions or something we can go back to.
Yeah, I think I just would like to reaffirm some of the commitments within the fellowship. We try to just provide, the graphic around when individual and cohort calls start. So they'll just kind of alternate every month. But between those like cohort calls, those are the times that we really get to engage in a group discussion. Those are often like more robust calls because they're, we have a facilitated agenda. We'll have some, a discussion topic along with some questions to go with it. So those are the really fun calls, I would say, where, we really get to engage with one another. I know it's all virtual, and I think we all may be getting a little tired of virtual calls, but those are really, again, fun calls to be on because you come together with, 4 to 5 other folks from different tribal communities, and we often just get to learn and share about the work that, we're doing. Maybe you're already a professional in your community, or you could be a student, or, you've really been in this industry for a while now. We've also had some that are just very, very new to the industry and just would like to, really have that career pathway in renewable energy and how they can help their tribe achieve some of their energy goals. So it just has varied over the past couple years, but we really try to be intentional on especially the cohort call discussion topics. And when you engage in individual calls, those are more just with TSAF staff, so we can help kind of support your plan and some of those activities that you may want to conduct throughout the year. Just for example, in the past, we've had a woman from Northwest Indian College. She's a professor there, since she wanted to work on some curriculum to continue implementing renewable energy, particular solar and a microgrid within their degree program already. So throughout her fellowship, she really just worked on that curriculum. We connected her with other folks that have developed curriculums. Particularly, we've had a number of Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund grantees. So in our other grant funding programs that have developed some curriculum. So within the TSAF community, within the grid community, And of course, within the industry, we're really just able to provide a lot of different resources. And so just making your fellowship year as worthwhile as it is to us, just learning about you and your community. I think what really makes this fellowship unique, right? Because we have 574 tribes across the nation, and a lot of times we don't know about one another's work or kind of what the energy goals are for a community in Wisconsin as opposed to a community in California. It could vary greatly. So it's just a really interesting way to meet other like-minded folks that are in this space that want to share and learn their ideas and visions for renewable energy development and infrastructure in their community. So it looks like we have a question. It says, thank you for the information. I was wondering, there are any technical training and development opportunities for hands-on solar energy installations offered within the fellowship? Because our fellowship started in 2020, when COVID kind of popped off, we weren't able to offer that. In 2021, we are currently in that fellowship year, so 2021 through 2022. We're actually going to be doing our final convening in the next couple weeks at the Bad River tribe in Wisconsin, because one of our fellows is from that tribe, and he is he's an expert really in their tribal community and almost in the region, because he has really led the development of kind of their net zero goals. And they also have a microgrid within their community. So it's not necessarily an installation, although, I mean, we were trying to get that, you know, as our final convening. We had our tribal team that was planning an installation, and we thought, you know, the dates for our convening and their installation were going to coincide, but unfortunately they didn't. But if that's something that, you know, you're interested in as a fellow, we'll definitely connect you to what we can as far as a grid install. We do think that is, of course, very valuable and important, because even as staff of the Tribal Solar Accelerator Fund, we often get the opportunity to go on build and installations as well, and that kind of helps us with our work too on the back end. So it only makes sense that we provide those opportunities, and we do have builds and installations going on throughout the year. So I guess it would just depend on your region, and we would provide as much support and you know, opportunities as possible. So it looks like that was the only question. I think we, you know, of course, covered a broad overview. Please, again, thoroughly read the request for application. Contact us with any questions. If you need help filling it out, we're happy to do that. But I would also, again, encourage you to look at the past fellows, kind of summary of what they proposed is available on our website, and kind of what their projects or ideas were about. We basically, again, support anything. As you can see also in the application, we ask for a budget narrative. We don't expect that you're going to spend $25,000 on, you know, trying to build your own solar system. We really just, you know, if that's what you choose to do, that's great. But this funding is really flexible. You know, we just want to be able to support your growth and development and how you want to achieve your visions and ideas. You can utilize this funding however you would like. I mean, in the application, it's just provide that budget narrative, and it's not really going to be, it's going to be, you know, scored, but it's really, you know, we have no right or wrong, or, no, that's not a great way to spend the money. We don't look at it that way. It's simply if you just provided the budget narrative is what it's going to be scored on. Like, yes, they provided that piece. And so then we move on to the next review of the other narrative sections. So just however you, again, want to utilize that stipend, we're flexible and understanding and just want to be as supportive as possible. That may be kind of the only other topic I wanted to cover. And I don't want to hold everybody to time or anything. So thank you again for attending. And we look forward to receiving your application and your questions. Please try to get your applications in before July 15th. You're always welcome to revise or edit before that date. So we are going to sign off, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week and weekend. Thank you.